Today, a special edition of State of Texas as our team travels hundreds of miles from the capital to the plains of West Texas.
You've actually got to get on the ground and go get them.
Searching for proof.
This is probably the most critical document of the entire day.
Inside a massive industry pumping billions of tax dollars into your schools, roads, and recovery each year.
It's the oil or nothing around here.
A vast oil empire of money.
There needs to be transparency. There needs to be disclosure.
Power.
What I saw was clearly appearance of bias.
And ethics.
There's only 3 of us, and we regulate the biggest industry in the state.
Those 3 leaders elected statewide make up the Texas Railroad Commission, perhaps the most powerful government agency in Texas. It has a misleading name, though. It has nothing to do with railroads, but everything to do with regulating Texas oil and gas. The commission's chair, Christy Craddock, is up for re-election next month, and in her first term, her well-known family profited off oil companies linked to her own votes on the commission. Corporate interests kept quiet until investigator Jody Barr started digging.
If you're really quiet and hold your breath, you can stand pretty much anywhere in West Texas and hear the heartbeat of the Texas economy. It's a 24/7 operation, and lots of people are striking black gold right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like Sergio Ortiz.
You see the dollars rolling here, right? Yes, sir.
He's become one of the most popular men in this West Texas oil patch. His family owns this tire repair shop in the town of Big Lake, a shop he almost closed 3 years ago when the oil boom busted.
There have been some pretty downtimes that it's been where I don't know if we want to be doing this anymore. Me and my wife actually had to sit down and think about, like, is it worth it?
Now, as the U.S. oil supply shifts in Texas's favor, this area is seeing some of the highest per barrel prices in years. The Ortiz family can tell it too. They can barely stock enough tires to keep up with the tens of thousands of trucks rolling through each day.
It's the oil or nothing around here.
This meeting, the Railroad Commission of Texas, will come to order.
Christy Craddock is the first Craddock to chair the Railroad Commission, but the family name spans decades in Texas government.
Have all voted members.
Her father, Tom Craddock, was the Texas House Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, members, back to my explanation.
Today, he's Midland's state representative. The Craddock oil businesses go back just as far, with oil interests spread across 22 Texas counties. Records we found show Christy Craddock holds potentially millions of dollars in oil interest. Not that surprising. It's what she's voted on as chair of this regulatory body that got our attention. Our investigative team traveled into the heart of Craddock country. We made the trip because tracking the family's oil interests is complicated, since only a couple counties post the records for the public to see online. We drove a few thousand miles, made stops in a dozen West Texas courthouses, searched through decades of land and oil records, and uncovered evidence that Christy Craddock and her family are doing personal business with many of the oil companies she regulates from her seat of power. Like in January.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Those items are approved.
Craddock voted on a rule change, easing restrictions on this Reagan County oil field known as Ringo 9. County records show Tom and Christy Craddock own mineral rights in this field through 2 separate companies, Craddock Partners Limited and Christy Craddock's personal company, Quarry LLC. The Ringo 9 wells produced 58,000 barrels of oil in the past year. By our calculations, these wells pumped out around $5 million in oil and gas production. Railroad Commission records show Craddock did not disclose her interest in this well.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Those items are approved.
That's just one of the cases we found.
Approved. Those items are approved. Motion passes. Items approved. Thank you.
State records show Commissioner Craddock also voted on rule changes to help produce more oil in different oil leases and oil fields across Texas, where the Craddocks own mineral interests. Christy Craddock's annual financial filing shows several different oil operators paying the Craddocks tens of thousands of dollars each year. Those filings also show the Craddocks own stock in some operators. Those same companies brought business before the Railroad Commission.
Those items are approved.
Archive video shows Christy Craddock cast votes in favor of those same companies. Since 2014, Craddock voted more than 400 times on agendas related to those companies, and records show no evidence Craddock ever disclosed her ties. As an ethics advocate, what do you think when you see that?
What I saw was clearly appearance of bias, at least. Commissioners are voting on matters that they have financial stakes in.
Adrian Shelley heads Texas Public Citizen, a government ethics watchdog group.
Sunset Commission has a quorum.
Shelley's group spent hours testifying before the Texas Sunset Advisory Commission in 2013. It determines whether a state agency like the Railroad Commission is doing an efficient and honest job for the people of Texas. Shelley's group found evidence they say shows railroad commissioners' political campaigns were funded mostly by oil companies they regulate. In some cases, those companies gave campaign cash, even while the commissioners were making decisions involving those companies. Did you have an idea at that time that the oil interest, when it came to Christy Craddock, was as vast as it turns out to be?
You know, I'm surprised to learn what I've learned based on your investigations. I don't want to see these sorts of specific holdings from a commissioner that create the appearance of bias that I've seen here.
We made multiple attempts to interview Commissioner Craddock and her father and business partner, Representative Tom Craddock. Neither agreed to interview. We found Commissioner Craddock at a September Railroad Commission meeting and sat up front to wait for the meeting to end. Craddock usually stays after meetings to sign orders, but this time she bolted.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Craddock rushed out a back door before we could even ask her a question. Ms. Craddock. We also checked the financial holdings of Craddock's fellow commissioners, Wayne Christian and Ryan Sitton. Outside of campaign contributions, our investigation did not find they're in business with oil companies. Commissioner Wayne Christian says his only investments are in general mutual funds.
I own no oil interest, no very few royalty, none, no royalty interest of any kind, no lease interest. So I wish I did have a bunch of oil and gas investments.
If you could buy that, would you buy that today and serve on this commission?
I'd probably have to question that very close with my attorney and the ethics attorney. I have an ethics attorney. I would pass it by them, make sure that I'm following the rules and regulations, but I have no interest in doing that.
Commissioner Ryan Sitton doesn't even want the perception he has a conflict of interest. Is it hard to separate yourself from this industry if you were financially tied to pieces of that industry?
I just don't want people out there asking those questions.
When we ask him about a scenario like Craddock's,
if I'm voting on an item and I own direct interest in that item, a well, a disposal process, anything, a pipeline, then yes, that would be a conflict of interest.
Some of what I have seen today is evidence for exactly why we need ethics reform. And I think that lawmakers who see that evidence will think hard about what needs to be done at the Railroad Commission. We need folks who are willing to take a stand against that. The status quo is not enough here in Texas.
Commissioner Craddock's staff sent a statement saying the sole purpose of each of Chairman Craddock's votes has been to ensure the enhancement and safe operations of the Texas energy industry, preventing waste and protecting correlative rights. Any suggestion to the contrary is entirely without merit, unconfirmed by her voting record, and unreflective of her integrity. Her father wrote us that he has 2 small working interests that he's owned for 40+ years. The rest of his interests are minerals and overriding royalty interests, which have no say or conflict with the operations or permitting of the oil and gas property. But after living in Midland since the 1950s and becoming the longest-serving lawmaker in state history, it's no surprise, Josh, that Tom Craddock is a big deal in West Texas oil.
Yes, Jody, and we even know he was inducted into the Petroleum Hall of Fame just months after his daughter was elected to the Railroad Commission. We asked several times for an interview, but he refused to speak with us, even at this event in Austin. But what we've uncovered now has a different state lawmaker saying a lot.
Do you believe there are things in these personal finances with these individuals that you all should have known when you were trying to put some fixes in place?
Well, no question.
A Texas House member plans to take another shot at reforming this powerful agency. Plus, we head north.
We're very strict on that. There is no wiggle room in that, and people have been terminated for violation of that.
For the past half-century, Oklahoma's found a way to avoid these problems. Could it happen with our commissioners, too? We continue this investigation into Texas oil empire coming up. Texas top oil and gas regulator.
And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Those items are approved.
Voting on the companies putting money in her bank account.
Some of what I have seen today is evidence for exactly why we need ethics reform.
We travel to West Texas for proof of what's not being disclosed and track down the politicians,
Mr. Craddock,
and the powerful family in question.
Mr. Craddock, we just want to ask you some questions about your oil interests.
Now our investigation's grabbing attention at the state capitol.
We need folks who are willing to take a stand against that. The status quo is not enough here in Texas.
The tax money coming from those oil companies goes into schools, highways, and disaster funding for you. So you want to trust the people making decisions on how those companies operate is in the best interest of Texans. That falls to the 3-member Railroad Commission, including its chair, Christy Craddock. We told you how ethics experts and even her colleagues have concerns about what we discovered about her family's connections to the industry. Investigator Jody Barr speaks with a state lawmaker who's ready to tackle the issue head-on in the upcoming legislative session.
Everywhere you look, hotels, restaurants, and gas stations are popping up as the middle of nowhere has become the epicenter of the latest Texas oil boom. Drilling oil wells happens daily. Pumping it out is nonstop. If there's oil underground, even neighborhoods are fair game.
This is probably one of the more prominent neighborhoods in Denver City, and you've got a pulling unit right behind this house.
Courtney Richardson planned to be a stay-at-home mom, but that changed when oil prices dropped a few years ago and her oil worker husband's pay took a hit. It's all looking up now with the discovery of the largest continuous U.S. oil field practically in her backyard, bringing with it the constant rumble of oil field trucks, the sound of 24/7 pump jacks, and even that neighborhood oil well, all welcome sounds to West Texans.
For us, it doesn't bother us, because for us, it's job security. You know, it makes us happy.
Back at the Capitol, some lawmakers are questioning the relationships between the state's most powerful regulators and the industry they regulate.
Sometimes simply the appearance of impropriety undermines the effectiveness of the regulator.
Representative Rafael Anchia was part of the 2013 Sunset Commission, a legislative panel charged with making sure state agencies are working efficiently. Sunset recommended separating the 3 commissioners from oil and gas companies. Government watchdogs told lawmakers that nearly 70% of the Railroad Commissioner's campaign cash came from the oil and gas companies they regulate. And some of that cash came from the people connected to active cases the commission was in the middle of deciding. Commissioner Christy Craddock told Anchia during the 2013 Sunset she didn't need a law for her to do the right thing.
I think the question is why, if we are capable of self-policing, why should we be treated differently than other non-judicial statewide? Because I think we should self-police, and I think we are ethical and able to self-police, which is the important part of this.
Do you believe this self-policing mentality is working with this commission?
Well, look, I was very skeptical of that argument from the Railroad Commission back in 2013 when they said, yeah, you know, just let us guard the hen house, okay? And we don't need any rules governing that. It is in human nature to have the incentive, in their case, to make money. I get that, right? But if you're going to be engaging in these private businesses and at the same time maintaining this public charge, you owe it to the public to disclose that.
To see if that was happening, we headed to West Texas, searching a dozen courthouses for railroad commissioner names in stacks of mineral rights. We found more than 600 properties in 22 counties connected to Craddock and her family's oil interests.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Those items are approved. Those items are approved. Those items are approved.
We also found more than 400 times when Craddock voted on agenda items dealing with oil companies that her financial filings show pay her and her father oil royalties directly. That's not something the Sunset Commission knew during their 2013 reform efforts. Knowing this now, what do you plan to do in 2019?
I'm going to be filing bills that are tough on disclosure, transparency, elimination of conflicts, all the things that I've been fighting for since 2013, and I'm going to make sure that they are brought to the forefront and get done this session.
Texas law allows railroad commissioners to have oil and gas interests, but the law requires they disclose those conflicts on the record. That means they're supposed to tell the public about it during these public meetings, and they're not supposed to cast a vote. But in 4 years of commission minutes, we found no on-the-record disclosure. That would be breaking the law up north across the Red River. How personally involved, financially involved can they be in the industry they regulate?
Not at all.
50 years ago, Oklahoma lawmakers banned their commissioners from having any interest in or financing any company they regulate. Lawmakers there also banned commission staffers from taking anything from anyone they regulate, right down to a cup of coffee. What is the state of Oklahoma trying to prevent?
Number one, you're trying to prevent any kind of question, and then telling the elected official you can't have any interest, period. I don't know how you would get any tougher than that.
That's not a step the Texas legislature's shown any interest in taking. If it's good for Oklahoma, why is it not good for Texas?
I think what Oklahoma has done is just basic good government and good governance. We should be able to adopt something like that here in Texas. The question is political will. We should be able to get this done in Texas, and I'm hopeful that the legislature has the political will to do it.
Fellow Railroad Commissioner Ryan Sitton sat down with us for this investigation. He said the way he avoids conflicts of interest is he created a blind trust. That's where a trustee invests for him, and he does not know where that money is being invested. But Josh, he is the only one of the 3 railroad commissioners with something like that.
Now, Jody, we know that state law says if anyone suspects Craddock has broken the law, they could file a lawsuit or a complaint, right?
They could, and also the Attorney General could also file a suit. If there's a violation found, she could be removed from office.
Now, Representative Anchia, the lawmaker from your story, he said that he will promise to file a new bill next year. We know that you will stay on top of any developments at the Capitol.
We absolutely will.
All right. Thank you, Jody. Up next, a behind-the-scenes look at this investigation on this special edition of State of Texas.
Some big country out here. There are some politicians in Austin who have made decisions dealing with oil and gas. There was reason enough to believe that we would take 4 people 6 hours away from Austin and do a little deeper investigation.
And then you'll be cutting up here on 33 to Garden City, halfway between Midland and Lubbock. Tonight?
Smell it. Smell the money in the air. We're making headway. We'll hit the courthouses today. These are the counties where we know the Cradocks have oil interest in, and you've actually got to get on the ground and go get them.
Here we come. Yeah.
Bureaucratic red tape, and that red tape is access to documents in some of these courthouses.
This is probably the most critical document of the entire day.
What we're looking for are deeds to mineral rights to see exactly who they're in business with. It is a very convoluted process to piece together the paperwork, the public records. We are spending many days here to do that.
You know what happens when I do all these records? I work up a mighty hunger.
So you are the clerk?
Yes, I am. I do not have the staff to go do public searches.
You're the repository for the public record.
Then, honey, go over there and look all you want.
And you can't give a date to get started.
5 minutes to look, and then I'm going to come have you escorted out because you're not listening to me.
We're trying to connect politicians in Austin to courthouse records here in West Texas to West Texas oil fields.
In the middle of a residential neighborhood, wouldn't you know, there's a pump jack right back there pumping a lot of oil.
Well, I guess now we're heading to the Ringo well, and that's one we know Christy Craddock cast a vote on.
Online now, drill deeper into Texas oil empire as we walk you through the dynasty of power and money one family has created in the oil industry. Interactive explainers to break down the numbers, a timeline to see how the family has emerged as business boomed, and a video trip to West Texas to see how this investigation came together. It's online now. Check out your local station's website for a link to the Oil Empire page.
Thank you for joining us for this special edition of State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle. We'll be back next week to bring you an in-depth look at Texas politics.